Hey guys, this is Jay Calder with Jay Unboxing here, giving you a personal prediction for Oscar Valdez versus Shakur Stevenson. And as always, this is just my take. Your prediction can be left down in the comments section below. Especially for this fight, I'd like to hear them all because it's certainly spicy between the fan bases and the fighters themselves. So leave all your picks and bets, predictions, all that good stuff down in the comments section below. A little bit of fight info here. We have Valdez versus Stevenson taking place at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada, airing live on ESPN with Valdez's WBC and Stevenson's WBO 130-pound titles on the line. And in my opinion, one of the most exciting fights of the year. Many are predicting a one-sided win for Stevenson, and I understand based upon his skill, but it's just not something that I necessarily see. I think Valdez will make it a little bit more of a fight. He's a good fighter. The one thing you have to remember is there's so much on the line, especially for Valdez. He's a fighter who's coming off of, certain types of accusations with drug use, as well as a kind of bad performance against Robson Conceição. He's looking to prove something here just as much as either of these two men, so it's something that he's going to have, not to mention all of the gold that's going to be on the line and the historical significance, so on and so forth. They've also been jawing at each other quite a bit, and that's going to fuel both of them. Stevenson's certainly going to want to live up to a lot of the talk that he's had, and he has the skill to do so, so he's going to be putting forth his best foot as well. All the gold is on the line, the supremacy at 130 pounds, not to mention it leads them to having far better rankings in pound for pounds and all these kinds of stuff, not to mention one might be able to move up with this success and continue to build their career. So there's so many implications in this fight, which I think makes it a lot more interesting, and of course I think will make both fighters want to fight all the more. So it's definitely a good one, and without much more rambling, let's break this one down. Starting with Valdez. For Valdez to win, I think he needs to set up that left-right combination. So Valdez isn't particularly experienced when it comes to fighting southpaws. I think his last southpaw opponent was years back at this point, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have the tools to utilize against southpaws. He actually does. He has a really good left hook, and that left hook can definitely lead to success against southpaws just based on your guys' positioning. What's more, it's a quicker shot for you because you're not having to kind of load up that power shot against a look you're maybe not used to, but it does set that shot up. When you can land that left hook that pushes your opponent more in line with what you're used to seeing and then land that right hand down the middle as an orthodox fighter, it definitely can pay off later on in the fight as you can continue to do so, especially against a fighter who's perhaps not used to being hit like Stevenson isn't. That's going to be a key for Valdez there, so setting it up with that left hook into that right hand will be huge. I would also say keep your hands busy. You can't get into this kind of boxing match with Stevenson where you think you're going to be able to outslick him. You're not. Outland him. You're not. You're just going to have to keep it a little bit uglier than that. Now, does that mean that you're going to have to get wild and reckless? No. But what it does mean is you're going to have to be bullish in trying to get in there. And once you're in there, you're going to have to let your hands go. Combinations will be huge for Valdez, especially because it just increases your odds of hitting him with something meaningful. Of course, it opens you up to being countered as well, but if you're Valdez and you're trying to box, you're going to be countered all night too. So at the very least, if you're increasing your volume, it gives you a better chance of being successful, landing something meaningful, and winning this fight. Now, with all of that said, my final key here would be make Stevenson come to you, which perhaps sounds a little bit contradictory on the surface, but here's what I mean. You're going to be pressuring if you're Valdez. You're going to be looking to land that left hook right hand, as I mentioned. All of these things are true. I don't think any of that changes. However, do I think you can do it all night when you have Stevenson potentially looking to counter you? No. You're going to have to give him different looks. One of the ways in which you can do that is by taking a step back and to the side from time to time and allowing Stevenson to kind of push forward a bit more, which he likes to do when he feels he has more control of the fight. What that allows for you to do if you're Valdez is step back in and meet him with the power shot. That kind of gets that double impact, and you can walk him into those kinds of shots, sort of setting those kinds of traps. You don't want to do it up against the ropes too much or in the corner because then Stevenson can kind of tee off and he's just too good, and that's going to be a problem for you if you're Valdez. But if you can do it in the center of the ring by just taking a step or two back and then meeting him in the middle with that power shot, it can be that double impact that could potentially cause the Americans some hurt, and of course that would only pay off well for Valdez. For Stevenson to win, I think you want to double up that jab. simple stuff, but I mean, when you have all the tools in the toolbox, you can keep it pretty damn simple, and Stevenson seems to have most of those tools. The jab is going to be the simplest and best one, and if you can double it up, it always helps your cause. Number one, it kind of gives him that interesting look, but more specifically what it does is if you're throwing singles from time to time, it's going to mean that he's going to try to counter off of that and press, and then you meet him with another jab. It just busts him up. It's an easy shot, low risk, high reward. And of course, for Stevenson, it sets up a lot of his other work. If he can get that jab going and then perhaps swing it around the guard or obviously bring that power shot behind it, it just means he's going to land more and more and be far more successful as the rounds progress. I would also say lead with the left hand. You know, from time to time, as much as I do think he can be successful jabbing, you want to give him varied looks. That can mean leading with that left hand, and Stevenson has a really good way of doing that. He can do it actually a couple of ways. For starters, he's quick enough he can just do it straight out the blocks, and that's going to be beneficial for him a lot of the time. At other times, he can do it with the sort of pull counter where he can make you miss and just come straight over the top with that left hand before you can even see what's coming. Another great way for him to land those shots. Not too particular on which one he does. He can lead, or he can counter lead. Either way, as long as he's just varying up that shot selection in regards to that left hand, I think it's going to pay dividends for him as the rounds progress. And finally, I would say keep your shot selection clean. I don't think Stevenson's the sort of fighter that gets, sloppy or wild or crazy or anything like that in fights. However, he's a young fighter who can sometimes try to put too much into those shots, too much power, just little things that you can notice from time to time. Again, he is a very good fighter, so he can certainly get away with it, and he might be able to do so in this fight. But why take that chance? Don't need to put 4, 5, 6, 7 punch combinations together all the time. Again, not that he does most of the time anyway, but just keep it nice, clean, and sharp. Keep them clean and sharp. Keep it within that 2 to 4 punch combination range, and I think that's going to pay off really well. As long as you can keep those tight and be first, especially against a fighter like Valdez, who will walk himself into a few shots from time to time anyway, this is going to pay off very well for Stevenson. Kind of keep his risk down and really just allow him to kind of cruise through these rounds so long as he doesn't get caught with something silly. Now, in terms of my pick, while I do give Valdez more of a chance than most, I also feel that Stevenson pulls this win off. Still, something to keep in mind. This will be the sort of biggest puncher / best fighter Stevenson has fought as a professional, and by a fairly wide margin. When you really look at his resume, it's not that it's terrible, but Valdez is the cream of this particular crop, and because of his size and just the fact that Stevenson, has moved up from lighter weight classes over time, this is probably the biggest puncher too. You have to keep those kinds of things in mind, and we have to see how well he does take that shot, because if this is a 5, 6, 7 or more round fight, he will be tested in that regard, and we have to see how it holds up. Still, my answer to the question of will Valdez land enough of those shots to hurt Stevenson, and my answer is no, not quite enough. Barring him landing one singular shot that rocks Stevenson to his boots, I think Shakur will be too slick and counter Valdez early and often in those opening frames. As the rounds progress, I think Stevenson starts working those lead left hands and busting Valdez up a bit more. The Mexican will keep pressuring, of course he will, but landing little in return, though he may do well to the body. I believe that could be a case as well. Still, in the final rounds of the fight, I see Stevenson getting those combos going and threatening to stop Valdez. His corner might even throw in the towel. I see him making it to the end, him being Valdez, with Stevenson winning a comfortable decision. Shakur Stevenson via unanimous decision. And the betting odds seem to suggest a bit of what I've been saying here in terms of my pick here. You have Oscar Valdez coming in at a sizable underdog of a plus 340 versus Shakur Stevenson, who's coming in at a minus 550. Not a great deal of value in the Stevenson pick there. Again, I just think it's too wide, and quite honestly, you're risking far too much in my opinion. But if you're a Valdez supporter, that's actually a very specifically interesting odd, because I think most people who pick Valdez think he wins by stoppage. And if he does win by stoppage, you'd be perhaps inclined to want to bet the over-under, for example. The over-under set it, I think, around 10 rounds, with the over in that case being minus 280 and the under being around a minus or a plus 200. In that case, don't even bet the under if you're thinking that. Just bet Valdez straight up. They're better odds, and you're not having to worry about the outcome. He could win by decision. He could win by stoppage. It doesn't really matter. That's just significantly better a choice. Conversely, I do think Stevenson wins a decision. I think Vegas probably thinks Stevenson wins a decision. Obviously, he's the favorite, and they think a decision is the more likely choice. If you're looking for value in him, you could think about that under. Because again, you might have a higher risk of losing your money, but a much better yield if you do win by picking Stevenson to win by stoppage, which again is not out of the realm of possibility. He's a very, very good fighter. So some things to think about, but in any event, those are your odds. And my prediction record heading into the weekend is 15-4-0 with 3 exact. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Would you have any bets going, any picks, predictions? Love to hear all of that. Who do you got in this one, of course, between Valdez and Stevenson? Love to hear all of that. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at jcalderon_JOB. And you can email me at jagonboxing@gmail.com. Love to hear from you there. Also, be sure to check out jagonboxing.com for schedule, results, betting odds, rankings, and more. And down in the description box, there will be a link to my most recent edition of Fighter Grades, as well as a piece on whether or not I think Tyson Fury will be retiring. I don't. Love to have you guys check those out as well. And as always, until next time.